Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Fascina el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin ti naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I am your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Mr. Perez is the owner of the La Palapa group of restaurants here in Puerto Vallarta. Those are the La Palapa, the El Dorado Beach Club, and at night for dinner, the El Dorado transforms into the ever-so-romantic Vista Grill with dramatic views of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors. And, of course, at La Palapa, you can enjoy that same view of the Los Muertos Pier all day long for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And by the way, last week, my wife and I had the most killer breakfast at La Palapa. We had their Eggs Benedict sitting on a crab cake. Oh, it was just so good. It was served with perfectly cooked potatoes, beautifully plated, right there, right at the water's edge, right in the sand. It was just so romantic. It was just so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week I have a real special guest. He is sculptor Jim Demetro, and he is the creator of some of Puerto Vallarta's most iconic bronze sculptures. And we're going to be talking about his work and his latest creation. But first, let's see what's happening in Puerto Vallarta this week, May 23rd, 2018. Pride Week is here. For the fifth consecutive year, from May 20th to the 27th, Puerto Vallarta will become the largest LGBT Pride event in the region. Vallarta Pride associations, companies, and the entire LGBT community have joined together again to organize this event that celebrates the lifestyle diversity of our city in a 7-day festival that will offer arts and culture events and concerts and entertainment, films, fun, lots of partying, and, well, of course, the fabulous Pride Parade. The main events have a small donation and are nonprofit that once again show the world the best of Puerto Vallarta, their acceptance and their vibrant community. And it's at that level of acceptance that has made Puerto Vallarta recognized worldwide as an LGBT Mecca, hosting national and international gay visitors and creating a sophisticated culture that is an important artistic, professional, altruistic, and economic contributor to the community. This cultural heritage was adopted by the Vallarta Pride Organizing Committee, which works in conjunction with public and private partnerships to make Puerto Vallarta a player on the world stage of LGBT celebrations. Vallarta Pride works towards a future without discrimination, where we all have equal rights under fair and equal law. So, anyway, I have links to the event, which is planned through the 27th, as I said. And if you're in town, you might want to check out the goings-on, especially that Pride Parade. So check it out. That's right, Pride Week is happening right now in Puerto Vallarta. Also, it's Restaurant Week, and we know it's not really Restaurant Week, it's Restaurant Weeks. And it just continues. It keeps on going all the way through June 10th. Again, I have links to all the participating restaurants, and they are in the show notes of this episode. They are those links from Vallarta Lifestyles magazine. So take advantage of the special deals that you're going to find out there at all those great restaurants. And eat. Eat, ladies and gentlemen. Eat. Now, this is from the How Did I Miss This file. Vallarta was the site of demonstrations to legalize pot. And that was, let's see here, from Vallarta Tribune, dated May 14th. It reads, thousands of people demonstrated last Saturday in several cities of Mexico, including Puerto Vallarta, to demand a change in the legislation to allow the recreational use of marijuana, of Mary Jane, as well as the acceptance of this plant for therapeutic use. The march, a local manifestation of the worldwide global marijuana march, an event that has been held annually in over 800 cities in 70 countries since 1999, took place in Mexico City, in Guadalajara, Mérida, Monterrey, Tijuana, and our lovely Puerto Vallarta. In Puerto Vallarta, there were about 40 demonstrators who marched along the main streets and the Malecon on Saturday afternoon. Local Gold Leaf Smoke Shop owner Samara Alpern says, I think it's great that the city gave activities such positive support. In Mérida, there were reports of harassment by police. I'm thankful that in Vallarta, there were no such problems. It was wonderful to see both national and foreign residents demonstrating together at the march, she says. Whoa, just 40? I guess that the rest of the 10,000 other people were just too stoned to move. Kim Martin, owner of Mysocovia Swimwear, showed her support as the demonstrators passed by her Malecon shop. It's something that hits close to home for Kim, whose father uses medical marijuana in Canada for his ailments. I believe that legalizing it would help control violence and help many people that are unaware how beneficial it is for many health issues. I don't believe it's for youngsters. I don't even smoke it, actually, but I have been meaning to start. Really. And definitely will in my old age. Growing it in Canada is my dad's passion. In June of 2017, a decree legalizing marijuana for therapeutic use throughout Mexico was published in the official journal of the Federation. And although the government said it would regulate medicinal use, it has not done so yet. So, how about that? Puerto Vallarta is looking to make recreational pot legal. How about that? Now, I don't recommend foreigners go out and hit the streets in Mexico, getting involved in politics and stuff. That's really a good way to get your ass kicked out of the country for good. But, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a good question for one of our abogado buddies. Is that a good idea to get out there and demonstrate? Not sure. Anyway, I'll ask next week. But how about that? Mexico is looking to emulate places like California and Colorado and go green and legalize pot. It's not legal yet. Don't get the wrong idea, folks. Don't be rolling up a joint and smoking in the street over there in Puerto Vallarta. You will get arrested. Okay? Don't do it. Anyway, I have a link to the article in the Vallarta Tribune in the show notes, just in case you haven't had enough. Okay? All right. Now, I was reminded by my friend David Osland, who also, if you go back to one of my older episodes, you'll find that he has a place called Chef's Pass, Vallarta. And David has asked me if I would talk a little bit about this Airbnb kind of situation that he has going in JR's building where JR lives, or the condo area there. There's a place that came up for rent, and David fixed it up and turned it into a really, really nice place for someone who wants to, spend the night in town. It's up in the same complex, like I said before, as where JR lives. So if you want a neighbor like JR during your stay to help you get around. It's a great spot. It's in the El Coloso neighborhood, and I've got pictures of the place. It's got 3 different floors. He's made it really, really nice. There's a kitchen area with everything you want, so you could cook there if you wanted to. Although I don't know who does that in Puerto Vallarta. I certainly don't. But it's around $35 a night, so it's really, really reasonable. I have a link to the VIRBO. What is it? Site, I guess it would be. So check it out. I got pictures, like I said before. And if you're interested in living like a local, not a loco, but if you're living like a local, check it out. It's called Casa Jazz. And once again, you'll be neighbors with JR. Right, Puerto Vallarta is getting ready to celebrate 100 years. The 100-year centennial is coming up next week, and I'm going to have all the events for you next week, next Wednesday. So you'll have to check that out. We'll be talking a little bit about that. But speaking of the 100-year celebration, let me just segue into our interview, okay? Now, I first met our guest, Jim Demetro, back in January of 2017. At the end of the Malecon Sculpture Tour that's put on by Gary Thompson of Galleria Pacifico, Gary gives tours of the bronze sculptures all along the famous Malecon. He does that once a week during the high season. And if you haven't heard the episode that I have with Gary and that Malecon Sculpture Tour, you just look for it in the show notes. You just actually go to the bottom of any page of my website. You'll find a little search bar there, and just type in Gary Thompson Malecon Tour, and it will pop up. So will anything, by the way. If you're looking for anything on my website, use that search bar. It's a great, great tool. Anyway, you will find that particular podcast. And at the end of the tour, the group actually returns to Galleria Pacifico to enjoy some beer or some soda. And then Gary actually has, or had at that time, he had Jim Demetro tell his story about his projects. And then at that point, after that's done, Gary takes up a collection for Biblioteca Los Mangos, which is the central library in town, and then that's the end of the tour. Well, Jim has a big surprise coming up for the 100-year Centennial Celebration. Like I said, coming on the 31st of May next week. So I thought it was only fitting that I bring on this very interesting man and introduce him to you, and then let him tell you what's happening and about what he does. That is really just so important here in Paradise. So let's go right now to a beautiful studio, a beautiful gallery, right across the street from Lazaro Cardenas Park, Parque de los Azulejos, and then let's talk with this very talented sculptor, Jim Demetro. Jim, thanks for inviting me to your wonderful gallery.
Well, you're very welcome, and hope you enjoy it.
Well, I do. You've got some great artists here. But before we start talking about that, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself? Where are you from, and what was your path that brought you to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, originally born and raised in the south side of Chicago, kind of Obama territory. But I left there when I was 19 years old, went on to college up in Milwaukee School of Engineering, where I got a degree in electronics and process control, and got a job in an industry pretty much traveling all over the U.S. and worldwide, too.
Okay, so were you doing the sculpting thing?
Well, I wanted to be an architect. That was when I first thought I would be, and because I was really good at drawing, and but I also was a tinkerer, and I like to put things together, take it apart, work with my hands. And so I went into architecture, did that for a year, and I got kind of bored of drawing windows and doors, and so I decided I better go into engineering, get something I really enjoy doing. And I did that for a number of years, and 25 years ago, I decided I wanted to do something else. I was lucky that I traveled all over the world in my work, and I was particularly drawn to the great museums of the world, especially in Paris and in Rome, and all the figurative art would just speak to me. And I said, boy, this is something I really would like to do. I was good at drawing, but I wanted to work with my hands, and I wanted to work in 3 dimensions. So one day I just, 25 years ago, decided to quit my engineering and decided I was going to be a sculptor. And that's the path I've taken here.
Okay, so was there any specific training, or are you a natural sculptor?
Well, I never had any formal training to begin with. Over the course of my career, I've worked with and studied under a lot of really great artists. Richard McDonald in California in particular. I spent some time in Italy and Pietrasanta studying figurative artwork there. So, but majority of my work has pretty much been self-taught.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you are an extremely prolific sculptor here in Puerto Vallarta. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your sculptures here. What was your first one?
Well, the first one was the Vallarta dancers on the Malecon, male and female dancers in a traditional Jalisco outfit. And that came about, wife Ava and I were walking along the Malecon. This was, over 10 years ago. And I saw the dance troupe, the Chutla dance group. They were dancing on the Malecon by the arches. Mm-hmm. And I was so struck by the beauty of the dance and the costumes and the music and their energy. And I thought, boy, they need to have a sculpture of that to preserve that particular aspect of their culture. And so I was lucky enough to meet a Professor Enrique Barrios, who was the teacher. And he worked at the Cultural Administration at the time. And I told him about my thoughts of doing a sculpture of his dance group. And he says, great. He said, why don't you do this? You make a model of it in clay. We'll present it to the mayor, and then we'll see what happens. So I made a model, and we presented it to the mayor, and he looked at it, and he said, wow, he was really into the Chutla dancers. He says, this is great. We've got it's a great addition to our Malecon, and we have a place for it, blah, 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 but sorry, we have no money. So then I realized that just about all the sculptures that you see on the Malecon have been donated some way or another. The artists have to figure out how to get it there through donations. And so I went back home, and in our condominium complex, we have a courtyard. And I set up a tent there under the courtyard. I started sculpting, and I have a daughter, Christina, who also is a sculptor, and she came down and kind of helped out during periods of time. So we started sculpting under this tent in the courtyard, and as people would come by and say, what are you doing here? We had this big clay thing coming up, and we would say, well, this is the new piece that's going to go on the Malecon, and we showed them the model in clay, and we said, you can be a part of this construction of this piece and have ownership in it. If you want to give us a donation, here's a piece of clay. You can put the clay on there anywhere you want and become part of the artistry of this piece. And we also were selling the small maquette, the small model that we were making, only in bronze, and that was another way we raised money for it. So over the course of about 6 months, we sculpted it and raised the money for it. And then it took another 6 months at the foundry in Guadalajara to make the piece. And then we dedicated in 2006, I believe, is when we actually did the dedication of it on the Malecon.
Okay, so start to finish, that took, what, 2 years?
Well, about a year of 6 months of sculpting and 6 months at the foundry.
Okay. All right, so how does this clay go from clay to bronze?
Well, that's a very interesting and it's a very long, arduous journey that the clay takes in order to get from what I sculpted. We sculpt in clay. We start out with a styrofoam base primarily, and we sculpt everything in styrofoam.
Got it.
The reason for the styrofoam, if we just work completely with clay, it'd be so heavy and everything, we just want to sag and break.
Right.
So we start out with wire armature, and we put styrofoam on it, and we carve back the styrofoam, and then we start putting clay on top of that. And it's an oil-based clay, so it never really hardens,
Okay.
never dries, so we can work on it today, tomorrow, or a year later.
Wow.
It's great stuff. Pretty much all the professional artists use this type of clay.
Okay.
And so once we get all of the detail in and it's the way we want it, then we have a master mold maker who comes and he cuts it up into sections. They like to work at the founder level of maybe 2 feet by 2 feet max sections.
Mm-hmm.
So they cut the head off, the arms off, the legs off, and they section it all
What
off.
a mess.
My wife
Poor
ate it, just
people.
couldn't stand watching this thing come apart because it really gets destroyed in the process.
Yeah, I bet.
And then they put a liquid rubber on top of that,
Okay.
which hardens, and then they put a fiberglass backing which holds its shape. The liquid rubber is it's just floppy, and it would just flop around, so the fiberglass is what holds its shape.
Got it.
So once they have all these molds, and there were probably 60 molds made of that piece, then at the foundry they take the mold and they put hot wax in there. They layer hot wax in there. And the thickness of the wax will determine just how thick the final metal will be, which is approximately 1/4 of an inch thick for life-size pieces. So once the wax hardens in the mold and they pull it away, now they have a wax image that looks just like what we sculpted in clay. And from there, we can adjust the wax. We can change anything or any detail that's lost in the wax we can put back in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we inspect every wax before it goes on to the next step. When we approve all the waxes, it goes on to what we call the slurry stage. And there at the foundry, they have this big vat of ceramic slurry and another vat of sand. It's about the slurry is about the consistency of yogurt.
Okay.
So they dip the wax piece into that ceramic slurry, and it coats the wax piece. Then they take sand and they sprinkle sand on top of that. And they do this over a period of a week. They build up a ceramic sand layer all around the wax piece, which is about a 1/2 inch thick,
Mm-hmm.
and that hardens. Then they take it and they put it in a hot oven, and all the wax melts out. So now you have a hollow ceramic mold that can take the hot bronze metal that they want to pour in there. This is called the lost wax process. It's been done that way for thousands of years. The Egyptians were doing it 2,000 years ago. The Chinese doing it 4,000 years ago. Basically, we're doing that same method even today, lost wax process.
Wow, so I know that they make jewelry that way, but I had no idea that they make big pieces that way too.
They make jewelry, they make crowns that way for your teeth. It's a very interesting process, and we're still primarily doing it today, or that whole industry is changing too. So once we get the wax that's burned out in the hollow ceramic mold, they pour the hot bronze in the ceramic mold at 2,400 degrees. That hardens, solidifies, and then they take a hammer and they break the ceramic, and now they finally get the piece in bronze.
Wow.
But now they got 60 pieces that they have to put together, so it's like a puzzle. It's like a jigsaw puzzle to them. So they start building this piece by piece and welding. They use a TIG welder, and they weld all around every seam. Then they grind and polish and add anything, information that might be lost. So you have you never see where the seams are.
Good, yeah.
And so they do a wonderful job. They're really artists in themselves, because you have to be an artist to be able to do this type of work. And then once it's all built up and we approve of it, they do the final coloration, which is called a patina. And the patina is done with an acid wash. An acid, they use nitric acid that depending on what color you want, we can come up with any color you want nowadays. The traditional colors were the kind of the bronze, brown, tan, orangey colors. And that was done by dissolving anything ferric base into nitric acid, like screws, nails, anything would dissolve, and it would give you sort of a brownish orange color. Mm-hmm. Then they would heat the metal up with a hot torch that opens up the bronze pores of the metal, and then they would spray on or brush on this ferric nitrate acid wash, and it really it becomes a chemical bond with the metal, very strong bond. And if you wanted to have a green color, then they would dissolve cupric, anything copper color, to give a green color. Then they would put the green on there. So any color you want, basically they could come up with. And once they finish with the patina, then they put on a wax coat, just like you put wax on your car to preserve the metal.
Sure.
They put a wax coating on there, and that really protects it, especially in an environment like we have here in Puerto Vallarta. Very difficult, very hard on anything made of bronze.
Yeah, the tropical sun is...
The sun, the sand, all the elements here, they want to turn everything green, basically. Everything will turn green if just left by itself, but that's why we put on the different colorations.
All right, so the dancers, what was your next project after that?
The next project after the dancers was the washerwoman, and that was... commission piece done from Molina de Agua, the big Molina de Agua building. When they built the building, and I talked to the builders, and you know, they took something very special away from there, especially along the river, the big trees and everything were there. Yeah. And I said, you need to put something back, something artistic preferably, and something that speaks to the history of what was here. And so they asked me to give them a bunch of suggestions, and I gave them a bunch of drawings and sketches, and they picked out the washerwoman because that right along the river there, that's what they used to do. The women used to wash their clothes there, and so I had a model I found this woman. She was in her 70s, 76 years old, and I saw her walking along the street, and she had a little stand where she sold little clothing, just a really cute little woman. I said, I'm looking for a model for somebody that used to wash their clothes in the river. Did you ever wash your clothes in the river? She says, yes, I did that all the time, because she grew up here. And so I said, would you like to model for me? I'm doing this sculpture. And she said, sure, and I'll pay you for it. And I take pictures, and just all you got to do is just pose for about an hour and maybe take some pictures and measurements of you. So I took her up to her condo. She'd never been in an elevator before. She's just holding my hand as we were going up in the elevator. You know, she's just so scared. And we got her up there, and then she looked over the balcony. She'd never been on that higher than maybe the first or second floor. And we were on the sixth floor, and she looked over the ocean, and she was so just spellbound. And,
wow.
And so she modeled for me, and I took pictures and measurements, and so we sculpted it in PTL at the foundry there in PTL, Gustavo Lopez's foundry. And when we got the thing done, and the Mirror wanted to do an article on it, and they asked me, can you do right next to the statue, I'm going to do pictures and everything and the story behind it. I says, but we have to have the model there because she was part of this story. And we kind of lost her there for a while, but we finally found her in PTL, and she came over, and I said, now they're going to take some pictures, and we're going to stand next to the statue, and she asked, well, where are the pictures going to go? And I said, they're going to go in the newspaper. And she said, no, I can't take any pictures, no pictures. I says, why not? She says, because then people will think I'm famous. This is how humble she was, you know. And she told me, I don't want people to think that I'm famous. I said, okay. Well, the pictures will only be in the gringo paper. They'll be in the gringo paper. They won't be in the Mexican paper. So don't worry. None of your friends will ever see it. And then she was okay with that. And so we took pictures, and we've got a really nice article done on her. And that's kind of the story behind the washerwoman.
That's a great story. So is she still around?
She still is around. She comes by about once a month. She comes to visit us. She still does this beautiful blouses, all handmade, and she's losing her eyesight now, unfortunately. She's in her 80s now, 86 or so, but she's still very vibrant and just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Wow. Do you think you might have a picture of her somewhere?
Yeah, I do. It's on the board here. If you want to take a picture.
Good. I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to have it. I'm going to have a picture of her in the show notes.
Yeah.
So that you'll have to check out. You just go to www.puertovallartatravelshow.com and you'll see them there in the post for this episode.
Yeah.
All right. So we've done the washerwoman. We've done the dancers. What was next?
The next one was the Borel Project, and that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing that one.
I can see the Burro from right here from your office.
So what I'm trying to do in my artwork is preserve the history, culture, and all the traditions of Vallarta. As we know, everything is changing so fast here and become modernized.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to have some aspect of that history and culture to identify, that somebody can identify with. And so I've been looking around for different projects to do, and I saw a picture. It was in front of our condo on the ocean. This Burro had bags of sand on them, and they were taking the sand and they were carrying it, and they would, all the hillside condos and everything were built on the backs of the burros.
Yeah.
They carried the sand, the gravel, cement all the way up to all the hillsides. And our condo was actually built. They built ramps and everything, so these burros would carry the sand and concrete and everything all the way up. Story by story.
Yeah. Wow.
So I thought, boy, they need to have a something to honor the burros, because we used to have hundreds of burros running around town. Now there are just maybe two or maybe one left. So I decided to do the Borough Project, and we sculpted that on the River Quali above Oscar's restaurant.
Oh.
There's a real nice space above there.
Yeah.
And I asked if we could use that space to do the Burro Project. And I did the Burro Project similar to what we did with the Vallarta dancers. I had people come, put clay on it. We sold a small statue of the Burro. I brought the kids from the schoolyard over here. Hundreds of kids would put clay on it. I had pictures of them putting clay on it. So it became a real wonderful project, very enjoyable, and everybody loves the piece, and especially when it was dedicated and put in the park. We see so many families congregate around it, people sitting on the burro, from huge people to small people sitting on the dog. It's fun.
Does that make you cringe, Jim, when they do that?
No. We built it very strong,
okay.
So it'll take 5 people on the thing, on his back easily.
Good. All right.
So it's very well built. We
Okay,
anticipated that.
Because you sit here in your gallery and you can look at that, and you can probably watch them abuse your animal out there. That is a really, really cool piece.
Yeah.
So those are really iconic pieces here in Puerto Vallarta.
Mm-hmm.
Any others?
Well, the last one, or the latest one, I should say, hopefully not the last, is to honor the fishermen. And this is another story behind the fishermen that got me thinking about them and wanting to honor them. Was that several years ago, I was walking along the beach by the pier, and there a fisherman caught a fish, and he reeled it in, and he took it off his hook, and he took the fish and he put it in his bucket, and this big pelican swooped down and grabbed the fish out of his bucket and jumped in the ocean with his fish. And he tossed it up in the air to get it in his mouth, and it went in his bill, but it went in sideways, so it got stuck in his bill, and he couldn't swallow it. So he tried and tried to swallow it, and so finally he came ashore, and he's running around shore, and the fisherman grabbed him by the back of the neck, and another one opened up his mouth and pulled the fish out of his mouth and put it back in his bucket and shooed the pelican off. So I saw all this, and I said, oh my gosh, I wish I had a camera to film all this. It would have been fantastic. But I said, okay, I'll just do a piece to honor the fisherman, the pelican, and I put a cat and a dog in it just for fun, and everybody's interested in the bucket of fish that's there. So that's the latest piece, and It's destined to. It's being made now as we speak in the foundry in PTL, and it's destined to go and be inaugurated on the 31st of May this year, and it's been pushed around little different places. First, it was going to go on the pier, then on the beginning of the Malecon, and now the latest place for it, and probably where it'll end up, is on the Malecon, right next to Los Arcos Hotel, and it's right on the beach, just or the street just north of the street going to the pier. And it'll be right along the Malecon. We're building a base for it, and so that's the latest.
That's the latest one.
That's the latest, yeah.
And more to come, I'm sure.
Well,
so is this project done the same way? Are you doing it with, or did you do that project the same way, where you invited people to come and put clay on and make a donation and make it all work? Yeah,
exactly. We did it that way, and we sold a lot of the maquettes and bronzes, and a lot of them were sold. So the piece was fun.
That's a great evil plan. I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, it's a great way to get everybody involved, make people think that they have a hand in that.
Well, you know what? It's so much fun because I tell people, well, put some clay on it. Remember where you put it. You know, it's going to be part of this, and you become part of the history of the piece, and you have ownership in it. So treat it well.
Yeah,
you know?
That's totally cool.
They really enjoy that, and they come many years later. They always show me pictures. See, here's a picture of me. Put it on the Borrow or something, you know, and they remember that, and the kids remember that. So it's a nice way to get the community involved, and because it's not my piece, it's their piece.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about your gallery, because this is new, right? You just opened this up not too long ago.
Yeah, in November last year, 2017.
How's it going over here, okay?
Yeah.
How's the business?
Good, very good. It's a little different than your normal gallery, and that's a multifunctional gallery. It serves three purposes. We have, first of all, a place where I can sculpt and do my work. And then I give classes in the back. And during the season, we'll give 1 or 2 classes a month there. And we have a model, and it's a beginner's class typically. And I provide clay, the model, tools, everything you need for a beginner to get started. And it's a week-long class. And
it's like how many hours a day?
It's typically from 10 to 3 with an hour for lunch, so it's
intense.
It's about 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is for people who are really, really not just interested, but are willing to make an investment.
Well, they have to make a commitment, and the nice thing about it is most of them are beginners. They said, "Oh, I've never done anything. This is a real challenge for me." And at the end, they end up with a really nice piece of work that a lot of them get cast in bronze.
Neat.
Yeah.
Wow. So have you had people come in as total neophytes, and you look at that and you go, "Whoa, this guy is pretty good," or "This gal is pretty good."
Yeah, a lot of them have real talent, and it's really fun to see how they once they get started and they just evolve, and I can see that they're really coming into their own. The first couple of days, it's pretty intense. I'm teaching them step by step how to build these things. Then their artistry comes through. So we'll have a class of about 6 people, and they all begin with the same model, the same pictures, the same measurements. At the end of the class, they all look different.
Yeah.
They all look different, and that's where their artistry comes through. It's really interesting to see that come about.
That's fascinating. Your hours here? What are your hours?
We're 11 in the morning till about 7 in the evening, except for Sundays. We close on Sundays. We represent about 15, 16 different artists here, a lot of different disciplines, from paintings to sculptors, and we even have a little bit of artwork, furniture-wise, lamp pieces that are really, really interesting. And next season we plan to have quite a few more different artists, and it'll be. We're looking forward to next season.
Yeah. So speaking of season, you're going to be closed for the low season?
Yeah, we'll close it probably the first week in June and then open up in November.
Back in November.
Yeah.
All right. So then where do you go? Do you stay here or do you go off?
We spend our summers in the state of Washington, where we live in a little town called Battleground, Washington, a little bit north of Vancouver, Washington, and we live out in the woods there on 10 acres. It's a lot different than we live here in the city where we don't have a car. We walk to everything. There we have to drive everywhere, but it's completely different. But I have my studio there, and we get our work done in Portland, Oregon, where there are quite a few foundries to work with.
Oh, wow. So speaking of foundries, you were saying is the foundry in PTL?
Yeah, it's in PTL. Gustavo Lopez Ochoa is the proprietor. He owns it. Great artist too. Does fantastic work, and highly recommended. Highly recommended. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let me ask you a couple things that are totally not related to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You live here full time almost.
Well, our season is becoming longer and longer. Used to be 5 months, then 6 months, now 7, and well, who knows? We might live here year round someday.
Yeah, it might happen, right?
Yeah,
it might happen. If they can work on that, air conditioning for the outside during the months of July through October, I think you'd be okay, right?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, this has been a fantastic year. The weather-wise, just incredibly beautiful. Every day's been fantastic.
I love it.
We're leaving tomorrow. We're going up to Alaska, where my co-sculptor, Christina Demetro, she's helped us out in quite a bit of my project, always from day one when I started. And she's also a fantastic sculptor. We've worked on the Burro Project, this Fisherman Project, the Vallarta Dancers. So she's been involved in just about all my work. And she's got a dedication that we're going to in Alaska, in Homer, Alaska, 6-foot salmon that she's dedicating. So we're going up for that.
Wow.
And she's coming down here for our dedication for this one here. Then we got Vancouver, Washington. We got a co-dedication of one we worked on together for Vancouver, Washington. So we're going to be pretty busy here.
Yeah, you should really find something to do, Jim. It sounds like you got nothing to do at all.
I know.
Wow. So she'll be here for the dedication for the 100th anniversary.
Right. She'll be here. So.
That's totally cool.
So anybody who's in town, please come by and hopefully be part of the celebration. There's going to be a lot going on for the 100th anniversary, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. Everybody will enjoy that.
Absolutely. And it's a good ploy, once again, to get people here on the off-season. I love it. Very smart. All these people in Puerto Vallarta are pretty smart. Okay, now I'm going to go into the bonus round. This is where we leave your studio, we leave your gallery, and we go and we ask you things like, what's your favorite place to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner? You can get people mad. It's all right.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Ooh. Well, there's still breakfast, boy. There's just so many places for breakfast. Soriano's right next door to us. I like the River Cafe a lot for breakfast. Lunch, we usually don't go out for lunch. We usually eat two meals a day.
Yeah.
And then
all right, we can skip lunch. What's your dinner like?
Kind of an early dinner or late lunch, and a lot of different places. Been going to the Merida Grill over here, which is really excellent place, and I don't think it gets as much play as it should. That's just a fantastic place for dinner.
Yeah.
The service is great, the food is great. That's one of our favorites come lately here.
Excellent. All right. I gotta go check them out.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to a first-time visitor to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, the first-time visitors, a lot of them end up in Nuevo Vallarta and all-inclusive, and they need to get over on this part of town, Zona Romantica, because this is where really the excitement is and everything's happening. And you can just walk block by block, and you'll see something different, and every day's an adventure here. So Vallarta is just one of those magical places that just has so much to offer. I think just walking the city, you'll run into so many different things that you'll never see anyplace else.
Yeah. All right. So wear your comfortable shoes, everybody.
Yeah.
Get a lot of walking in, and don't be afraid to walk around town. It's a safe place. Well, maybe late at night you don't want to go walking too far up the street, but very safe place to be.
Exactly.
Is there anything I'm missing? Do you want to add anything while I got you here?
Well, I hope everybody enjoys the interview, but just walk around town, enjoy the artwork, especially because we're very lucky in Vallarta. We have such a great collection of artwork, especially along the Malecon throughout the city, that most cities would just die to have. Great art scene, great artists, and hope you come in and have a look at our gallery too.
Right, that's important. And I'm going to have pictures of the gallery in the show notes, so definitely check those out. I'll have directions and all that cool stuff so you can come and see Jim Demetro yourself right here in Puerto Vallarta. Mr. Prolific Artist, you are fantastic. I want to thank you so much for letting me introduce you to my audience. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, too.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Wow. Jim and his lovely wife are just such nice people, and his new gallery is really, really cool. I have pictures of the gallery and of the wash lady who modeled for his sculpture near the Molina de Agua. You know, I really love that story about her first elevator ride, you know, and also about her not wanting to be famous. It's just precious. Anyway, I have pictures of Jim and his new sculpture that is going to be showing up, The Fisherman. I have links to all the things that Jim talked about, as well as maps that'll show where the gallery is located, of course, and links to his website and all that other good stuff, especially if you want to take any of his sculpting art classes. So check those out. All right. Well, that should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember, this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you are in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to use someone else, so do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he's got his DIY maps, he's got his tours, he's got his revitalized happy hour board, and more. I have links to all of those in the show notes. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Remember, I made it easy for you to do that with each episode I create. And if you haven't been to my website, you really need to go there and have a look. I have links to the places that we talk about. I have pictures, and I have more right there in the blog posts and in the show notes for each episode of the show that I create. So check them out for sure if you haven't already, okay? All right. So, thanks to Jim Demetro for coming on and telling us about the process of creating his bronzes and about his newest work of art. Look for it next time you are in the vicinity of the Los Arcos Hotel. And it just might be there, those fishermen. And, you know, hey, if you have time and the initiative, you might want to consider taking sculpting lessons from this icon of the Vallarta art scene. I have links to all of those things in the show notes. Take you right to his classes and all that, okay? All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino interno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta.